Hello everyone, I'm Tracy and thank you for tuning in today. So I have a lot of updates to share with you guys, and I'll kind of give you an idea. I'm going to follow up with some of the developments about the governor and what he's been saying about BJ Penn. I have a little more information I dug up on John Peltier, the police chief, and a little bit about I'll talk about this first. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't understand how these numbers came to be, but most recently they changed the number of missing people to 66. So in the very beginning, there were kind of numbers going around 2,000 to 3,000. They narrowed it down to about 1,000, and then they said it was 388, and now it's down to 66. However, the death toll is still at 115. So I simply don't know how they came up with this. I don't know if they're pulling numbers out of a hat or something, because I find it hard to believe they found that many people missing that were still alive. You know, even from 1,000 to 66. At least I haven't heard of any personal stories of people being found after being missing, but that is the official story. I wanted to follow up also on the meeting that Senator Kurt Favela requested with Governor Green. So I played the clip in my previous video. He is trying to disband Governor Green's Build Back Better development project that he's been doing in Honolulu. So they showed up, him and his supporters went to the governor's office. I thought it was a scheduled meeting, but it turned out it was more of an impromptu, show up and try to get a meeting. So Governor Green was actually on Maui at the time, so they didn't get to meet with him. It was just a case of bad timing. But they did get granted a meeting with the lieutenant governor, and they sat down with her for a while, and they presented her with the proposal of what they wanted. So in a nutshell, they want him to disband what he's doing with the development of Lahaina and move those meetings to Lahaina and include people that are from Lahaina. So I think if you're watching this, that is probably what you want as well, but it doesn't seem like the governor wants that. But he now officially has a document mapping out at least what Senator Favela wants, and he represents, I would say, the majority of people on Maui at least. So I did want to let you guys know. And a little bit more about Governor Green. I did find a speech he made in July 12th of this year. It was a high-level forum hosted by the UN. It was in New York, I believe. And I'll show you the clip of what he says about these smart cities. Or
generations and even centuries ago, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people lived in Hawaii and had a sustainable culture for food. And that was something that we still recognize. To that end, we have done some things, and we hope to be able to share this much more in time. One is the Aloha Plus Challenge, which is a data-driven approach which we can share with our states and with anyone who feels that it would be helpful to track the SDGs, to make sure that we embed them in all of our policies.
Well, Governor Green envisions Hawaii one day being a bridge to other nations as a sustainable ally.
And then I do want to touch on the public statements being released about Nani Medeiros' resignation. I talked about it in my last video. So she was the chief housing director in charge of this new development plan, and she resigned. And the governor publicly has said that it was because she was being bullied and treated unfairly. And then he singles out BJ Penn as the reason for her resignation. He says, I'll tell you exactly. And for those of you a little less familiar, BJ Penn is a MMA fighter. He doesn't fight anymore, but he was probably in his prime in like the early 2000s, 2005, 6, 7, 8. He had a lot of high profile fights during that time. I did watch MMA at that time. And then now he's more of an activist, and he did run for governor on the Republican side last year, but lost. But this is what Governor Green said about BJ Penn. The bullying tactics with obvious violent undertones employed by Mr. Penn and his followers have no place in Hawaii and are absolutely contrary to our spirit of aloha for others. I won't tolerate anyone from my team or anyone in our state being treated this way. It is despicable. So he's probably referring to the speech that BJ Penn made at the housing meeting that Governor Green left, and left Nani kind of as the person in charge. And so BJ expressed his opinion, and I highly doubt it was his intention to get her to resign. I don't think that was even on his mind. And I think I could tell he was angry that the governor wasn't brave enough to show his face at that meeting, because he wanted to talk to him, and he wanted to tell the governor exactly how he feels, and then he ended up leaving. So I think his anger, if anyone, was aimed towards the governor, and Nani was the person, the head person there, so she ended up getting that speech from him.
Resigned, actually. That was the last thing that I would have ever expected.
A day after the state's housing officer resigned, BJ Penn told us he doesn't condone bullying and is all about aloha.
That's terrible to hear anything that she got threatened, and I want anybody out there to know, if anybody was involved doing that, I don't condone that. I'm 100% against that.
Medeiros is part of the Build Beyond Barriers group created to fast-track affordable housing projects under a state emergency proclamation signed by Governor Josh Green.
Me and Nani, we don't know each other personally, but I hear from everybody that she's just such a nice person and good person, and she kind of just got pushed in that position.
The governor personally blasted Penn for what he called bullying tactics in the wake of the resignation. But Penn says he's being falsely accused.
That's really wrong to say that and to point at me and to say that he's not going to tolerate that. It almost kind of feels like some kind of Donald Trump type of thing where they go after somebody.
And he wants to make amends with Medeiros.
Hey, Nani, when I get to see you again, I would love to, just apologize if anyone did come up to you and do anything like that or did anything to your child or husband or any of that stuff. So I just want to make everything good right now. So, right on, Nani.
I don't feel like it was violent at all. I don't know what happened off camera, but definitely what I saw him say was not violent or threatening. That's just my opinion. All right, so now I'm going to move on to John Peltier, the police chief. And I've been talking about him through this whole story. I found some news clippings of complaints that were made against him since he became chief at the Maui Police Department. So he was there. He started in November of 2021, and these complaints were made about 7 months after, so the middle of last year. And he had 7 official complaints, and it was mainly because of the stress that the employees were put under Pelletier's management, and it was unprecedented. One of the complaints was he cussed out a female in front of people, and a number of things. I'll play some testimony from a former lieutenant.
Maui Police Chief John Pelletier has been on the job for about 7 months now and has racked up 7 official work environment complaints. The employees who filed the grievances don't want to speak out because of fear of retaliation, but former ranking officers speaking on their behalf tell me one involves a woman who was cursed at during a meeting, and that working under Pelletier has led her and several others to seek help from psychiatrists and anxiety medication.
There was no leadership. It was a dictatorship.
Former Maui Police Department Lieutenant William Hankins had more than 30 years of service under his belt. Hankins worked under 5 different chiefs, but says he retired early because of Pelletier, alleging the recently installed head created what he calls a hostile and toxic work environment from the very first meeting.
Telling the command staff that if you don't agree with him and support him, he's going to fillet you.
People walking around on eggshells. Nobody wants to say anything.
After 28 years in the force, former Assistant Chief Clyde Holokai also retired early because of Pelletier's management. Holokai and Hankins agree the internal friction at MPD is unprecedented. For Holokai, he believes the stress of working under Pelletier even took a physical toll on him.
In about 2 months, I lost about 15 to 20 pounds working under him.
Hearing the complaints from employees at MPD, the police union surveyed 60% of its personnel back in April, with a third of them reporting they are thinking of leaving within the next 2 years. Many citing morale as a top reason for considering a departure. The Maui Police Department is already 100 officers short.
The results were quite alarming.
Workers surveyed also gave Pelletier poor scores on 12 out of 13 categories. One question asks whether the chief fosters strong morale, with most responding not very well or not well at all. The police union is waiting on the findings of the complaint probes to determine next steps.
So kind of drawing on my experience, I never worked for the county or the state or anything like the police department, but I did work in the corporate environment. So I am familiar when the person in charge, there's a shift in power, and a lot of times that person is very different from what previous chiefs or, maybe like the director was. And in general, if you have 7 complaints against you in a fairly short period of time, often there's some kind of disciplinary action, a demotion, a suspension, something like that. I can't find anything on Pelletier that any of that happened. I just found that he was given a significant raise at that time. He was given, I think, about a 30% raise. And so that doesn't make sense because he was not doing a good job as chief. He was not well liked, and he didn't seem like he was doing a good job. So that just makes me wonder, what are the powers that be that are keeping him there? And he is still the chief, even after many reports of people that were in the fire who were not able to leave the area in their car because the police officers were blocking the roads to get out of Lahaina. In fact, they were told to go back towards the fire, and a lot of these people died. Pelletier is the chief. He's in charge of the officers, and he is still in that position. He also acts as a coroner, so he's the one that signs off on death certificates. So that's possibly why there's a holdup on the death count and why it's been 115 for a few weeks now. But yeah, every time I dig deeper into Pelletier's past, it seems to be fairly negative for the most part. Today I have a couple of other things I'm working on that I'll hopefully release later this week. And I did see, I'll maybe clip this in the description, but Governor Green did make a statement on camera, not answering questions, about what he kind of plans for this land. And I can tell, in my opinion, he looks like he's under a lot of pressure. He looks very tired. He looks very stressed out. And deep down, I feel like he's feeling the pressure. You know, he's feeling this attention that's being put on him. And he should know that there are a lot of people that are not happy with him and don't want him in that position. So in a way that's good, you can listen to what he has to say and you could judge for yourself whether you believe what he's saying. But it seems like he's kind of changed his tune more recently from saying, you know, the state is going to buy this land and do other things with it. He's kind of starting to express that that's not going to happen, or he is planning to give the land back to the people that owned it. So I think that's kind of positive, but I will stay on that and see, you know, if any new messages come out. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.